Hello and welcome everyone to Grid Live pre-race on the Grid network of live streaming. We're also simulcasting on the Ultimate Sports Radio Network. With me, Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish. Very exciting weekend. 5 races. We got 4 ahead. 1 took place already. But we'll definitely get started with NASCAR. Kobe, what can you tell us about today?
Well, today is going to be a quick 130 lap race called the Pocono Organics 325, and tomorrow the Pocono 350 is going to run. Traditionally, we run two 400-mile races here on a single weekend, but instead we are going to be running a whopping 675 miles in 2 days. So, how much do you think this change? How much do you think that this will change the strategy for the teams, knowing that they have two opportunities to win and earn a spot in the playoffs?
It's really going to be one of these races where I think the strategy is going to be really unique because you got essentially a short race, the 325. It's going to be about 75 miles less than what we've seen before, the 400-mile races. So strategy is going to be a little bit more different, particularly pit stops, the length and all that of a run with the tires and the fuel. One of the nice parts about this weekend is if you learn something, you find something on the track where you feel you can improve the car, now you got that opportunity to come back the next day, Sunday, and improve further on. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the teams all handle having 2 race weekends back to back days.
Yeah. And today's race at Pocono is going to be race number 14 of the 2020 NASCAR Cup Series season. So far, we have had 8 different winners, and that means we only have 8 spots left in the playoffs. So, which teams do you think need to win more in order to guarantee their spot in the playoffs, so they're not on the outside looking in the event that we have up to 16 winners or even more?
Definitely, I think some of the teams that are going to be looking at trying to win, feeling they're in a must-win situation, include William Byron with Rick Hendrick Racing. I know Alex Bowman, we saw, got a win. Jimmy Johnson's knocking on the door. Chase Elliott has a win. He's been there. He's had a lot of good races, but just a lot of bad luck and doesn't have the finishes to prove it. With already 8 different winners, that means half the playoff field's already set. He wants to get a win, so that way he's not worried about point racing. So that's going to be a big win. Then, of course, I think a lot of times we see Penske. We don't think about them too much, but Penske, they got all wins, so they're looking at just bettering themselves, going for more wins, which is going to make it harder for the teams like William Byron trying to get a win. Also, you got teams like Roush. Chris Buescher looked really good last week in Talladega. Ryan Newman's looking better. So those are a couple of teams that I think are really feeling like they have to win to ensure they're in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting to see which teams are able to rise to the occasion and secure a spot in the playoffs. And as we get deeper into the summer, and closer to the playoffs, it's going to be interesting to see if we'll see what we call a surprise winner. And speaking of surprise winners, the last full-time Cup Series rookie to win a race was Chris Buescher right here at Pocono. He stayed out and became a surprise winner after the race was red flagged due to weather. And whenever NASCAR comes to the Pocono area, rain always plays a factor, and that could definitely impact what happens this weekend. And as we're speaking right now, it's currently wet at Pocono Raceway. So what a surprise! And talking about surprises, do you think we could see another surprise winner this weekend, like a front row motorsports car catching the caution at a right time and ring? John Hunter Nemechek's been running well. Michael McDowell is also showing improvement as well. Or could someone like Bubba Wallace or Corey LaJoie sneak in a win if weather plays a factor?
Definitely, if weather plays a factor, that is something those teams really should be looking at. Chris Buescher, Front Row Motorsports, they played that perfectly to get Chris his first win and in the playoffs, especially for a small team like that. They've been running really well with John Hunter Nemechek. So definitely, if they could play the cards right, capitalize on a caution flag for weather, you could see them easily get on a win. Definitely, I think Bubba Wallace, especially, this is one of the track when it comes to drivers that don't perform lower average finish. Bubba Wallace, Pocono is not one of his best tracks. one of the big things people remember was when he had the brakes fail entering turn one. So for him, if he could come out of here with a win, whether it's a surprise win with the yellow flag coming out and then the rain coming out afterwards and position himself, that's something the team could really try to benefit themselves. So definitely it's going to be one of the races where, especially we got rain right now, if we get going, they're going to be looking at the weather radar and trying to capitalize on the moment and get a surprise win.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I don't really think that we'll see a first time winner or a surprise winner there. I think we'll definitely see what I like to call the usual suspects, because after at look you know looking at the forecast, I understand we got a significant chance for rain in the forecast until like after 2 p.m. Then it starts to decrease. So I definitely think that we have a good opportunity to get in a full cup race today, and they especially want to do that before sunset as well. I believe sunsets after 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. So NASCAR definitely has a lot of time on their hands at the moment, and we'll talk more about the NASCAR Cup Series doubleheader weekend at Pocono. But first, we have a Virgin Australian Supercars race to recap.
A very exciting Virgin Australia Supercar race that occurred late last night for the Pacific, early in the morning for the East Coast. Essentially, the Australian Supercar Series, they've been away from the track since the pandemic started. They were at Melbourne with Formula One when all that was called off right at the last minute. The race was super exciting. Essentially, Scott McLaughlin, the defending champion and current grid ranking leader, held off Shane Van Gisbergen to win the race. Very exciting race. Kobe, I saw looked like you were up watching the race.
Yeah.
What do you thought of that race?
That race was definitely entertaining. It was definitely worth staying up for, and I couldn't think of a better way for supercars to return to action for the first time since the pandemic shut down, the entire racing world and the entire sports world in general. And it was definitely a treat for everybody watching it. Watch two of the best down under battle for the win. It was nose to nose between Scott McLaughlin and Shane Van Gisbergen. And Shane Van Gisbergen almost got there at the end, but Scott McLaughlin was just too good.
Scott McLaughlin was really good. Shane was just right there, really putting the pressure towards the end. Turned out for a really great race overall. I know, just taking a quick look at the grid ranking prior to the start of the race weekend, Scott McLaughlin, of course, we mentioned, still ahead. Jamie Whincup, who was second in the grid ranking, took home third place. So that was another good day for him. And then definitely Shane, he'll be looking at moving up. I know this is only the third race week for the supercars since the others have been all postponed or canceled. So it's really exciting to see them return back. And of course, we see all our NASCAR drivers. They'll be racing today at Pocono and as well as tomorrow. Now, the Supercar Series will again race tomorrow, early morning for the East Coast, late evening for all of us in the West Coast. So before we go into back to the NASCAR, now time for pick a winner. Kobe, you picked Scott McLaughlin yesterday. He got you to win, so now you're in the lead of the pick a winner ranking with two over Matt and myself with one each. So that is really exciting to see. With that said, I'll go ahead with my pick. I think I'm going to go for the first race. I think I'm going to go with Jamie Whincup. I think he's definitely going to try to rebound third place. He could definitely try to get the pole, go for the win. And then after Jamie Whincup for the second race, I think I'm going to again go with Shane Van Gisbergen.
Okay, and for my two pick winners for the first race, I'm going with Shane Van Gisbergen, and then for the final race at Sydney Motorsport Park of the weekend, I'm gonna go back to Mr. Reliable Scott McLaughlin, because whenever you have no idea who's gonna win these supercars races, when in doubt, pick Scott McLaughlin always. And the Supercar Series will be scored after completing the entire race weekend in the grid WML. And for the new fans out there, a driver has to complete 5 races to be scored. You can follow the grid WML on Twitter at grid_WML. And we're also, and as mentioned earlier, we're also following the weather situation at Pocono Raceway. Too often this year, it seems with NASCAR, it's always Mother Nature, rain, thunder, lightning, all that involved, and I admit it's very tiring that it seems like every single week it's always something with weather. And for all our new fans out there, Joe, can you explain why NASCAR doesn't run on the rain, specifically on the oval tracks?
Yeah, so for all our new fans, a lot of times we may have seen, especially some of the movies like Rush or Driven, where you have open wheel cars racing in the rain. They're racing the rain in the road course tracks. The problem with the oval tracks, there's too much pressure on the tires, especially in the corners. We have long bank corners, so they're carrying higher speed. So the big challenge of having a tire developed to handle all that pressure is just something Goodyear cannot come up with. So that's why when it comes to rain tires, you don't see rain tires at the Indianapolis 500. Yeah, Indy cars could run a rain race in a road course, but when it comes to oval like Indianapolis Motor Speedway, they're unable to race in the rain.
Yeah, and this year with all the rain, we have heard people suggest that NASCAR changed the policy when it comes to weather delays or even earlier start time, like as early as like noon, 1 o'clock. Like the old days. But NASCAR, they like to catch the prime. To deal with TV. In prime time ratings. That's why you always see like starts like 3 o'clock because they want to get into the prime time crowd, and that's completely understandable. I understand it's very frustrating for fans that who wait and sit around all day, and especially last week at Talladega, where at noon, it was sunny, and then we had the little weather delay, and we could have had the entire Geico 500 out of the way if we had started at noon before the rains arrived, and it's just an overall frustrating situation for everyone involved, and with earlier starts time, depending on the forecast, you can always make an attempt to avoid the poor weather. And in your opinion, Joe, what kind of changes do you think NASCAR could consider?
Definitely some of the things NASCAR may want to consider is, especially in the racetracks where we don't have lights. Talladega is a good example. It's such a large super speedway. There's no lights there. Indianapolis Motor Speedway has no lights as well. Pocono has no lights, which we're at this weekend. It can't hurt to look at possibly the earlier start time. Yeah, we know we like the idea of prime time where there's more fans likely to watch on the television or on their mobile apps. But in the case of these races where there is no lights, it gets a little harder if there is a rain delay compared to a Bristol, even Daytona, which has lights. You can postpone to later in the day, in the evening, and then complete the race with the lights there. So that might be something NASCAR wants to consider. And I know, especially back in the 90s, where you saw on ESPN sometimes, hey, NASCAR's in a hurry up mode. Here's a quick look at the starting lineup and green flags out. I know a lot of times it's a little harder because you got somebody there to perform the national anthem on television. You have the sponsors there to give the command. So I don't know if that's a viable option, but that might be something NASCAR wants to consider as well.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see if NASCAR actually does change, the rain delay policies or whatever. And I saw on Twitter that a lot of fans are saying like if you want a date on the Cup Series schedule, for the oval tracks, obviously, then those tracks need to have lights. And the movie with Ricky Bobby, Talladega Nights. And I do find it interesting that there's a movie called Talladega Nights, but in real life, Talladega actually doesn't have any lights at all. And I definitely think that it would be really interesting and historic to if the speedway added lights. And it would be amazing to see the very first night race in the history of Talladega Super Speedway. Will it happen? I have no idea, but it would definitely be interesting to see if moves are made to put up lights at tracks that don't have them, like Talladega, Pocono, Dover, all of them. I don't know about Indianapolis, but I'd be intrigued about the idea of a nighttime Brickyard 400, or even the first nighttime Indianapolis 500 in history. But that's definitely a fantasy for to discuss another day. speaking of potential fantasies, the NASCAR Cup cars can race in the rain on the road course. Like such as Sonoma. It doesn't really rain out there often when NASCAR's there, so I wouldn't really worry about that. But and as you saw, not just the Cup cars, I believe I think it might have been last year or the year before last. But I remember the Xfinity series had a brief little stint in the rain at Watkins Glen, and the Cup cars they would be able to race at the Glen as well. And I remember last year when I was at the Roval covering that event, there was a threat of rain towards the end of the race, and when I was on pit road towards the end, I saw the teams getting at the rain tires, and it would have definitely been interesting to see a rain race on the Roval, and especially the Cup cars on the rain tire when they're coming up onto Speedway 1 and 2. Everybody's like, we can't race in the rain on the oval, and it would be really interesting to see them traveling at slow speeds from the infield section up onto the banking. And however, we've seen the NASCAR Euro Series experiment a little bit with ovals in the rain. I'm pretty sure that there's an onboard shot of current NASCAR Xfinity Series driver Myatt Snyder driving on one of the ovals in Europe in the rain. So in the future, do you think it's possible for NASCAR to develop a rain tire that can race on ovals, or is that just a fantasy, something that will never ever happen because the technology might not be possible?
It's interesting. I remember, I believe 1995 or 1996, Terry Labonte experimented with a rain tire in Martinsville. The way I see it, and unless there's a huge advancement in the tire technology, I could only see where if there was a rain tire for ovals, it would be something such as Martinsville. Slower pace, the corners are not banked, so the cars are going much slower compared to a track where there's a lot of high banking, such as the super speedways or even the mile-and-a-half ovals. So that's definitely something where I feel, the tire technology, maybe we could get it to where a Martinsville race. But as for the road courses, I think NASCAR does have something pretty good. I know the Xfinity series, they've had a couple times when they used to go to Montreal, Canada, race in the rain. That put on a really entertaining show. One of the more memorable moments from that race was Carl Edwards using a squeegee with a extended arm, just trying to keep his windshield clear because it was fogging up. So definitely the opportunity to see a NASCAR Cup race in the rain, especially when it comes to Watkins Glen or the Roval. Those are two opportunities. Sonoma, being out in California, seems chances of rain out there is really slim. Just one of those deals where it's great NASCAR has it. We just never use it, but especially this year, it just seems, man, all the rain we're getting this year. If there was a way we could have a rain tire for the ovals, that would have been really great.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with everything you said. Like for me, it would be I don't I don't really think that the technology is there right now to run on an oval. But as I mentioned, the Terry Labonte situation at Martinsville, if they do, the best chance would probably be like a place like Martinsville, short track at slower speeds. And I definitely don't think you would see a rain oval race on a super speedways like Daytona, Talladega, or even a place like Pocono like this. I think that part would definitely be a fantasy. But if we did, I would definitely bank on the short track. And the NASCAR Euro Series proved that they you can get a little track time on an oval in the rain. Yeah, yeah, and I actually remember that weekend, and it was really interesting. I remember people were like in shock because they were like, but they said they can't race in rain on the ovals. Yeah, but definitely that's a situation that I'm sure that we'll keep following for years to come, as we've already have been.
Definitely for years to come, that's something we're always going to be following, especially NASCAR. I think one of the big things going forward too, with television and apps and all that, it might be something where NASCAR, if they could get that technology for more events in the rain, and especially with the rumors of Road America coming in, maybe another road course, I think that'd be really great. Have a lot less potential for delays. Of course, for folks that are just joining us and wondering why we're talking about rain and delays, right now it is wet in Pocono. There is still hope for the race to occur today, so we'll see what happens. Definitely be following Kobe Lambeth, on Twitter as well as the grid ranking for any updates. And definitely one of the things about Pocono that is really interesting is the we have 11 past winners racing today. However, the last 5 races have all been won by Joe Gibbs Toyotas. That includes Martin Truex Jr.'s win when he was with Furniture Row, a Joe Gibbs Toyota satellite partnership. Kobe, do you think Joe Gibbs will make it 6 or even sweep and have 7 wins in a row at Pocono?
Well, I don't think that Joe Gibbs Racing is going to win today, but I'm predicting them to win tomorrow. But yeah, but we'll get to the pick a winner in a little while. But I don't think a Joe Gibbs Racing car is going to be in victory lane today. I think it's going to be a Ford.
That'll be really interesting to see if a Ford could do it. One of the big reasons why was because the last Ford to win, and was the last person to win that wasn't a Toyota, was Ryan Blaney, and he was of course driving for the Wood brothers. So definitely, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens when it comes to Ford, Ryan Blaney, especially since Ryan Blaney's coming off that win at Talladega. Do you think Ryan Blaney could carry the momentum from last week at Talladega and do well, or maybe even get the win today at Pocono?
Oh yeah, yeah. I definitely think that Ryan Blaney has the momentum to keep on going this weekend at Pocono. It would not surprise me if he's a contender for the win. Like I said, I think a Ford driver is going to win today, and I definitely put him in my top 3 picks of the weekend. And earlier in the season, Ryan Blaney had a lot of great runs, but it just didn't work out. You remember he came so close to winning the Daytona 500, and then he ran so well, and like everything seemed to go wrong. And now that he's finally got the monkey off his back, it would not surprise me if Ryan Blaney like goes on a run and shows potential to be a serious championship contender.
Definitely, he could definitely show the potential to be a serious championship contender. So it's going to be really, really great to see what he could do today. Looking at the top 10 starters for the race, Aric Almirola, who slid into third place at Talladega, he is going to start from the pole. It really shows how important it is to be in the top 12 of the stands because he went from the top 12 up to the pole. Ryan Blaney, who we just finished talking about, second. David Allen on the front row. Then there's those Joe Gibbs Toyotas on third. Denny Hamlin, fourth. Kyle Busch. Chase Elliott, again, leading Chevrolet's effort. He's rounds out of the top 5. Joey Logano, Kurt Busch, Brad Keselowski, Kevin Harvick, and Alex Bowman around the top 10 for the starting lineup here at Pocono.
Yeah, and Joe, we actually have some breaking news that just come in. According to NASCAR, and you know how we were just talking about the weather at Pocono, and unfortunately, the NASCAR Gander RV and Outdoors Truck Series is a victim of Mother Nature today. According to NASCAR, their truck race has been postponed to 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, Sunday on FS1. So it'll be it. So instead of a double header tomorrow, it's going to become a triple header with the NASCAR Truck Series coming on at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, then Xfinity at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and then the Cup race at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. So no NASCAR Truck Series racing today. You have to wait till tomorrow, but the Cup Series is the main priority for today. And with daylight, NASCAR is going to focus on getting the track dry for the Cup race, but the fans will be able to have an additional race tomorrow and enjoy a triple header Sunday.
That's going to be amazing. A triple header race day. I know a lot of folks wish it could be there. This was one of the races where NASCAR had planned prior to the pandemic a doubleheader at Pocono rather than 2 separate race weekends. So I know it's a little bit of a missed opportunity for all the fans that want to be there to see all 3 series, especially all 3 series in one day racing. I think that would just been phenomenal for the fans to really enjoy. Now, one thing I want to also bring out too, as you were reporting that, with the World Motorsport League right now, Scott McLaughlin is the provisional leader of that. Of course, there's still more racing to go on, and Shane Van Gisberger is now at ninth. But we still have NASCAR going on, so that could change because prior to this weekend, it has been just NASCAR, the Great World Motorsport League. But now, enough talk about that. It's now time for really becoming one of our more popular segments, and we encourage all our fans watching to leave a comment of who you think is going to win. Pick a winner, and this time I'll go ahead. Since I went first the last time, I'll let you go first. Who do you think is going to win the Cup race today and then tomorrow?
Well, today, first off, I'm gonna apologize to the Penn State Nittany Lions because I think Happy Valley is gonna be in the Pocono Mountains today because Kevin Harvick is gonna roll into victory lane and Happy Harvick and Stewart Haas Race is gonna be victorious at Pocono today, and tomorrow I think a Joe Gibbs racing car is gonna win, but I think it's gonna be Eric Jones. He's gonna win before Kyle Busch in the 2020 NASCAR Cup Series season.
Wow, Eric Jones. Eric Jones. That's going to be something. A lot of people will be surprised to see if he could pull that off. And Kevin Harvick's always good. Of course, when Ryan Blaney got his first win there, he had to hold off a hard charge of Kevin Harvick for those last couple of laps. For me, I'm gonna, especially knowing we got a weather situation. It looks like it'll be getting drier. We'll see what happens, but I think it's going to be something where I think I'm going to go with a real long shot. He's won there before, and he got a top five finish at Talladega. I'm going to go with Chris Buescher. I think he's going to pull out the surprise win. If he does get the win, I think it's going to be a combination of pit strategy, a little bit of luck. Pocono is a tricky triangle. We have in the past seen a couple big wrecks, so I think he's going to pull it off today. As for tomorrow's race, I'm going to go with, I think, Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy has been good there in the past. A lot of people were posting on how a defining moment in his career was when he hit the wall really hard at Pocono Raceway entering turn one. I think, though, he's looking good. If he could put in a good effort today, Sunday, I wouldn't be surprised to see him in victory lane.
Wow, Chris Buescher and Jimmy Johnson, those are definitely interesting picks, and it seems like since Chris Buescher returned to Xfinity Racing, that although they've kind of like been off to a slow start in general, Chris Buescher and the number 17 Family Racing squad seems to finally be gelling, with their chemistry and all that, and they seem to be improving each week, and it would definitely be interesting to see if Chris Buescher can definitely win this race on outright speed, or is it going to be like another situation, where weather plays a factor. But as I mentioned earlier, it looks like after 2 p.m., the weather situation is going to look a lot better. So I feel very confident that we are going to see a cup race later today. And Jimmy Johnson, that would definitely be a sweet redemption story, to come back and win at Pocono, snapping snap the longest winless streak of his entire career at the place where it seemed like his career turned upside down. As you mentioned, that frightening crash. It seems like after that crash, Jimmy Johnson just hasn't been the same, Joe. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. It seems like a lot of times, especially when a race car driver has a serious crash like that, it is sort of like I guess, a reminder or sort of like a wake up call of like the dangers of sport car racing. Um, One of the things is sometimes we've seen drivers like Darrell Waltrip who had a frightening crash in Daytona where he flipped over multiple times. He rebounded, come back, but he always seemed to be missing that competitive element. So hopefully we could definitely see Jimmy Johnson rebound and get that win. And one of the interesting with my picks, that would mean I would break essentially the streak of a year with Joe Gibbs earning at least one win at Pocono.
Yeah, yeah, and I have something special to share with our viewers out there. I'm sure if you've already been a viewer so far, you've already heard about her. But my colleague Tara Jones at the Podium Finish has been on a roll lately with all of her wonderful feature stories. Yeah, and I know it's been such a long time since I've done an interview myself, Joe. But that could be changing soon. Maybe not an article, but in the form of a video. Stay tuned for future news here on the Grid Network. Yeah, and also make sure you check out Tara's interview with Front Row Motorsports driver Michael McDowell. The link has been provided in the video description.
Definitely, we encourage all our fans to check that out. We also encourage everyone to use the hashtag pick a winner. Share us your picks for the Pocono race weekend, as well as the Australian Supercar race weekend in Sydney. They still have 2 races left in Sydney. And then we encourage everyone to definitely visit gridranking.com. Learn more about us, our social media presence, and our YouTube channel. Please subscribe, like, and definitely hit the notification button so that way you won't miss any of our programs, including Grid Tonight. This will conclude for Grid Live pre-race. Be sure Sunday, following the NASCAR race, tune in for Grid Live post-race, usually about an hour after the conclusion of the NASCAR Cup Series race. For Kobe at the podium finish, I'm Joe San Diego. Thank you for watching and enjoy the races today.